Alrighty folks, welcome back to another episode of the Made to Pray podcast. You're joining us on a special bonus episode. The footage that you're about to watch came from a conference that I had the privilege of being invited to near the start of the year. The conference was organised by the North Wales Cultural Partnership, and it was part of their series of conferences called Envisioning the Future. This one in particular focused in on the constitutional issue. There were a number of participants there who were promoting what they thought was an argument for United Ireland, and a number of participants who were promoting what it meant to stay in the Union for Northern Ireland. And I was completely blown away by Colin Coulter from Maynooth University and his whole take, and I think you will not see a better takedown of the argument for a United Ireland than this one. And I have to say, I'm absolutely privileged to be able to share this footage with you, and a big thank you goes to the team at the North Wales Cultural Partnership for allowing me to do so. I wouldn't have access to this stuff if it hadn't been for them inviting me to the conference, but also for them having the foresight of organising this conference. So to Brian, Derek, Andrew, Georgina, James and the crew up there at North Wales Cultural Partnership, appreciate all that you do, and thank you for your continued support of Made to Pray. Folks, sit back, relax and enjoy this, and make sure you learn from this. He goes into quite a lot of detail, but I guarantee you it is worth watching this. If you want to counter some of the arguments, especially some of the stuff that's been on the news recently, you need to watch this episode, and you need to take heed from what Colin's saying.
Our final speaker for this morning's session is Colin Coulter. Colin lists his research interests fall into three categories, or three principal areas. One, the politics and society of contemporary Northern Ireland, with a particular focus on class divisions in this region. He is the author, co-author, or editor of 3 books on Northern Ireland, as well as the co-editor of 3 special editions of international journals. His second area of interest is the political economy of contemporary Southern Ireland, and he's the co-author of 2 edited collections, taking a critical look at the Celtic Tiger and post-Christ austerity periods, respectively. And his third interest is in popular music. He's the editor, co-editor of volumes devoted to the London punk band The Clash and Manchester indie legends The Smiths. He's also working on the Maynooth Festival of Palestinian Culture that's taking place this year from the 7th to the 10th of April 25. And like other professors, he has a list of various articles and books that he would have written. In 2019, he was working for the Clampdown, the Clash, and so on. So he still very much has his music interests with other things. Let's put our hands together for Professor Colin Coulter.
First of all, thanks very much to the organisers of today's event. It's fantastic to be here. It's fantastic to be here in this amazing resource, and congratulations to everybody who brought it into being. So really grateful to be here and have the opportunity to engage in dialogue with everybody. One more thing before I talk about the substance of what I'm going to talk about, just a wee bit of kind of autobiographical detail to put things in context and also to preempt a potential question that might pop up later. I've lived most of my life now south of the border. There's an awful lot of things that I like about living south of the border. In fact, to be honest with you, there's an awful lot of things I like better about living south of the border, not least that we have conversations that aren't dominated by this one particular topic. And I want to say this because what I'm about to say is going to be very critical of the Republic of Ireland, its economic model, and particularly the very large numbers of people who are left behind. So I just want to put it in that particular context. If we could have the first slide, please. What I want to talk about is the other jurisdiction, the 26 counties, because it strikes me in an awful lot of these discussions, we talk remarkably little about the Republic. Having been down south for 30 years, there's a kind of mutual ignorance that is quite extraordinary. People in Northern Ireland, in my experience, know relatively little about the Republic. People in the south know, I think, even less about the North. And to be honest with you, we often hear from people who are very keen on the idea of constitutional change that it is the topic on everybody's lips. I can assure you, nobody is talking about this in the university with 16,000 students that I've been working in for the last 3 decades. I think it's really, really important that we talk about the South, and in particular, we talk about the South critically. It used to be when I heard people saying things that were factually inaccurate about Southern Ireland, there were people from pro-union backgrounds, and I had to correct them and say, no, it isn't a priest-ridden society. It isn't a religious society. It's actually a secularizing and, in many respects, if not all respects, a very progressive society. More recently, when I hear things that are kind of factually inaccurate, it quite often comes from people from the side of the House who wish to see constitutional change. So what I want to suggest is that I think we need to have a more informed discussion about the Republic of Ireland, and in particular, we need to have a more critical discussion about the nature of contemporary Southern Irish society, not least because if there is constitutional change, and it is obviously a topic for discussion in this part of the world, if we are to have constitutional change, 3/4 of the population of that new Ireland are now currently based in the 26 counties, and the tail will not be allowed to wag the dog. Okay, what I want to talk about is the nature of contemporary Southern Irish society, and I'm going to talk about a particular paradox, which is Ireland is a wealthy economy. Is it actually a wealthy society? Because the two are not the same thing. When I listen to people who advance the case for a border poll or constitutional referendum, whatever term you want to use, I quite often hear that the South is the land of milk and honey, that the public coffers are overflowing, that they could fund this project, that project, and every project in between, and every project beyond. Next slide, please. I'll give you an example of this. In a debate last year by the local MP needs no introduction here, Colin Eastwood, a debate in which actually he really shone. He was head and shoulders above anybody else on the podium. He said this, I showed this to my students the other day. They weren't particularly impressed. The idea that people in the Republic of Ireland are quite happy to pay rents of a level we're going to talk about in a wee minute really did actually put their backs up. So this idea of of Southern Ireland being this almost utopia, as this country that is overflowing with wealth, as this prosperous economy, which it is, of course, is very, very problematic, one-sided, and we need more nuance and we need more critique. Next slide, please. Here we have some quotes from Ireland's future, very prominent on various forms of social media, and I'll give you a wee bit of a flavour of the nature of the discourse that's coming out from those who wish to see a border poll and who wish to see constitutional change. Now, I don't particularly have a problem with this. The purpose of Ireland's future is to advance a particular position, and if I were advising Ireland's future, I'd be pumping out this same information as well. The problem is, it's not true. The problem is it's not entirely true. And the problem is that it actually doesn't provide people with the appropriate cultural, social, political context in which to understand what's really going on. Next slide, please. I should also say that it is, in particular from a distance, if you don't spend an awful lot of time south of the border, I think it's entirely reasonable that you would think that the things that you're hearing from the likes of Ireland's future are actually simply the plain truth. The numbers are pretty extraordinary. By any standard economic metric, the Republic of Ireland over the last 30 years, with the exception of a period of about 5 or 6 years after the great financial crisis, the idea that the Irish Republic is an economic success story is very easy to construct. What we have here, of course, is figures for corporation tax. And an awful lot of the discourse around the Republic of Ireland is around the remarkable boom in the level of corporation tax. This is from 2019, and you can see that the quantity of corporation tax, that's tax paid to the Irish government by corporations, has almost trebled. It is absolutely extraordinary. It's unbelievable. But that's what I want to suggest to you. It is literally unbelievable. It cannot be happening. Even though it's happening, it cannot be happening. I want to explain that particular paradox in a wee moment. An increase of 157% from 11 billion back in 2009 to, what is that? Almost 30 billion, 28 billion in 2024. And to point out the obvious, the beginnings, oh, not working, there it is. The beginnings of this boom happened in 2020 and 2021. Anybody remember what was happening in 2020 and 2021? The Irish economy booms. The corporation tax take booms precisely as the Irish economy closes down. How can that possibly be the case? Well, in order to understand that particular paradox, we need to look at a little bit of political economy. We need to look at the activities of multinational capital. We need to look at things like transfer pricing, and we need to look at tax avoidance strategies. And I want to suggest to you that the Irish state is the bagman and an international strategy of tax avoidance from a substantial number, but particularly a core number of multinational corporations. Next slide, please. What this slide shows is the remarkable concentration of corporation tax in the multinational sector. You can see here, 84% of that tax take comes from foreign multinationals. But the concentration within that is absolutely extraordinary. Anybody who wants these slides can have them. I'll pass them around through the organisers afterwards. It's pretty extraordinary. 84%, almost all of it. 93% of exports from the 26 counties are from foreign-owned multinational corporations. 84% of all the corporation tax take is from foreign-owned multinational corporations. The top 10 of those corporations produce more than half of the corporation tax take. 3 of those corporations are responsible for a third of the tax take. In fact, last year, one corporation, Apple, who, as we know, pays a remarkably small level of corporation tax. In 1 year in the last decade, it paid 0.005%. That's €1 out of every 20,000. In spite of the fact it pays a very, very small level of tax, it paid over 6 billion last year to the Irish revenue. That's almost a quarter of the entire corporation tax. So what we have is this remarkable concentration. And if 84% of all the corporation tax take is coming from the multinational sector, that means that the increase of 17 billion is roughly 14.5 billion of it is coming from the multinational sector. So why this boom, right? Why this graph that's going up suddenly like that? Why did it start going up in a period of literally economic lockdown? Well, there's 2 obvious explanations. One is that multinational corporations, next slide please, are investing more and more money in the Republic of Ireland. And of course, that is in fact true. You can see here, of course, back in 2019, before the coronavirus lockdown, it was literally $1 trillion, 1,000 billion. And a billion, of course, is 1,000 million. And you can see 2020, 2021, up to 2022, you can see this big, big jump in investment. You can also see it now beginning to slow down, right? Is that the cause? Well, what we have is a 29% increase, which is enormous. Any other country would be delighted to have this. This is the paradox. Here's the good things that have bad consequences. An increase of 29% in foreign direct investment. But how does a 29% increase in foreign direct investment get you a 157% increase in your corporation tax? Could happen, but you'd have to strike oil or find gold in very, very substantial quantities simultaneously. So is it that? I don't think so. Possibly, next slide, please. Possibly, next slide here. What we have is it could be the increase in the level of multinational employment in the Southern Irish economy. And again, what we see is, yeah, that could well be the case. What we find is that the number of employees in a relatively short space of time has jumped by about 70,000. That's extraordinary. If you were the finance minister, the employment minister of any other European country, you would be shouting this from the rooftops. It's genuinely, genuinely remarkable. It is again a 29% increase in the number of people. Doesn't seem to be working now. This wee thing up here. Here it is. 29% increase in the workforce. How does 29% increase in your workforce get you 157% increase in your corporation tax? Well, I did the numbers. The only way you can actually get that spike in your corporation tax is if everybody who joined the payroll of multinational corporations over the last 5 or 6 years is producing profits of 1.6 million each. That seems extraordinary. Let's look at the numbers. Next slide, please. The official corporation tax in the Republic for the last number of years has been 12.5%. It's about to move to 15%, but it hasn't quite happened yet. So the 12.5% rate applies still. What that means is that for every €8 of profits registered, not necessarily created, registered in Ireland, the Irish state takes €1. Okay? It's 1 in 8. Okay? €1 in tax revenue for every 8 in profit. So if we know the tax revenue, we just have to multiply it by 8 to get the level of profit. And the number we get is, where is it? 115 billion. It is an eye-watering amount. The GDP of the Republic of Ireland is just over 500 billion. The real economy, when you strip out the various accountancy scams of multinational capital, is a little over 300 billion. Put in those contexts, you're talking about absolutely astronomical amounts. If you take 115 billion, anybody's better in maths, anybody has a calculator, can try this. When you get home, you get a figure of 1.645 million. In other words, for that tax take to be real, for that tax take to be legitimate, everybody who joined the payroll since 2019 in the foreign-owned multinational corporation would have to be generating, on top of their salary and expenses, would have to be generating a profit of 1.6 billion. Does anybody believe that can be the case? Of course it can't be the case. So what is really going on? When we look at this through a critical political economy lens, what is really going on here? Next slide, please. Well, what's really going on is two things. One is the real stuff, which is large numbers of people being employed, quite often in good salaries, in multinational corporations. Those people pay income tax. Income tax is the biggest source of tax for the Irish state, above everything else. So there's something real here. But there's also, beside that, a phantom economy going on. Multinational corporations are booking in Ireland hundreds, literally hundreds of billions of profits generated in other European countries. They are booking them in Ireland, pretending they were generated in Ireland, and they were generated in other parts of the European Union. Why? Two reasons historically. The first is that the corporation tax in the Republic of Ireland was lower than almost anywhere outside of Estonia, was lower than almost anywhere. And it dragged that race to the bottom. It dragged the corporation tax rate down in other European countries towards it. 12.5%. But as any tax evader will tell you, it's not about the headline rate, or it's not just about the headline rate. It is about the proportion of your income, or your profit in this case, that you pay that headline rate on. Anybody who wants to avoid tax has to take part of their income and part of their profit out of the elements of their income or their profit which are eligible for tax evasion. Okay? They need to make those things tax neutral. In the Republic of Ireland, multinational corporations, with the direct collusion of the government, and I use the word collusion for reasons I'll come back to, because that is specifically and explicitly precisely what it is. There's a number of strategies. For example, intellectual property. If Meta or Facebook or Google or Pharma or Pfizer or Eli Lilly, they can actually pay themselves for the use of their own intellectual property. If one of those corporations pays themselves for the use of their own logo, the amount that they pay is taken out. That amount of their profits is taken out and it is not subject to corporation tax. Another strategy is inside firm loans. If one of these massive corporations, Apple has 250 billion in money down the back of the city, rainy day money. If one of these corporations lends itself some money, the full amount of that is taken out of their tax liability. There's another chunk of the profits that the Irish revenue isn't going to tax. Here's another one, which I didn't know until I was the examiner on a PhD in University College Dublin about multinational tax strategies. Literally, in the Republic of Ireland, if you're a multinational corporation, you can claim administrative taxes, and the full amount of the administrative taxes will be removed from your tax liability. The full amount of that will be taken out of the amount of your profits you're expected to pay tax on. Alka Woods, a rather brilliant young student, found for 2020 Facebook, Meta. Meta is one of the top 3 providers of corporation tax in the Republic of Ireland. Claimed, these numbers are really hard to get your head around, right? That is 38,000 million. They claim to have spent 38,000 million on administrative expenses. Guess how many? The number of administrative workers they employ. Don't have to guess, it's right there in front of you. 540. You divide 540 into 38 billion, you get 70 million. Facebook is claiming that each of the people in its admin sector is spending 70 million on paper clips, post-its, and photocopying, right? The revenue are aware of this, and their argument they don't do anything about this is they've never done anything about it before, right? If anybody's had experience here in the South, during the crash, our union told us, ask the revenue for your, what was it, the chalk dust tax. You can actually get 250 quid. I rang them up, got my 250 quid 2 days later. A confirmation through the post. 2 days later, 4 letters from the revenue came through the post. They had found things that I hadn't paid amounting to €1,000. That phone call cost me 750 euros, right? But Facebook, right, has a strategy of insisting that each of its admin workers is actually spending 70,000 on, 70 million, apologies, 70 million. No, exactly, 70 million. Keep on pressing this. Next slide, please. Okay. So what we have is this strange world. You saw the figure before for Kellogg's. What was it? Something like 7.1 billion in sales. Do the numbers. Go on the Tesco website. Multiply the population of the Republic of Ireland by the price of a box, the big box of cornflakes, and multiply it by 365. You will never get anywhere near 7 billion. What we have is a phantom economy which involves very, very well-known accountancy scams which ensure that multinational corporations registering their profits in Ireland pay less tax than they would in the countries where those profits were generated. Okay? Why is that a problem? Well, it's a problem for 2 reasons. The first problem is, if you are, like myself, a socialist, this is obviously a major, major issue. If you're not a socialist and you're a nationalist, then perhaps it should be a problem. Because these figures that are being parroted on social media by people who want to advance the case for constitutional change are figures that are based upon an international strategy of tax evasion. What happens is profits generated elsewhere are booked there, and the Irish government takes a smaller slice, but it's a smaller slice of profits that should be actually being registered in other countries, and those corporations should be paying tax in those countries. Right? If you're a nationalist, say, so what? The Irish state is getting the money. The Irish state will use that money to prepare the ground for a united Ireland. The so what is in Munich, Maastricht, Montpellier, and Malaga. Children are going without because their governments don't have the tax revenue they should have from multinational corporations who produce and sell in those countries. We're now in a different world. Donald Trump, I can't imagine there's many people in this room would find agreement ever with Donald Trump, myself included. But he's called Ireland out finally. He is the person who's called Ireland out. He said they've been clever, and they have been clever. But what he's pointed out is something that everybody has known for a very long time, which is the Republic of Ireland is a bagman in an international strategy of tax evasion by multinational capital. It has been a beneficiary of that, but it may not be a beneficiary much longer. Wednesday of next week, we will know exactly what's going on. The introduction of punitive tariffs, particularly on the pharmaceutical industry in the Republic of Ireland. Germany exports 25 billion of cars, 25 billion euros of cars to the United States. Little Ireland, with less than 10% of the population, exports 45 billion of pharmaceuticals to the United States. There's something not quite right there, and this might be about to come to an end. It may not. It may not be as catastrophic as people are saying. The headlines in the Irish Daily Mail yesterday were Dan O'Brien, an economist with a long track record of getting things wrong, particularly during the crash, saying this is going to be worse than 2008. It's not going to be worse than 2008, but we are entering into a different context. And the almost inevitable outcome of that different context is a dip in the corporation tax take. If I could just maybe in 5 minutes make a separate but connected point. Next slide, please. We all know the Republic of Ireland is a wealthy economy. We all know that it is a place where wealth is produced and where wealth is laundered. But is it actually a wealthy society? Because the two don't always go together. Is it actually a wealthy society where 70% of the population, when they want to go and see a GP, have to spend 60 euros? Is that actually a wealthy society? My students quite often come in with coughs and sneezes and all the rest, and I say, go and see your GP. No, 60 euros, it's too much. Is it a wealthy society where you have to spend 80 euros a month on prescriptions? All right? I'm currently, because one of my asthma medications isn't on the prescribed list, I'm currently paying 140 euros a month. I'm on a decent salary. I can afford it, but if I couldn't, if I was on a more modest income, it would be a serious take out of my salary. Is it a wealthy society where more than 50% of the population is spending on average 2,100 euros a year on private medical insurance? Is it a healthy society where this month, and the month isn't even over, according to the INMO, the Nurses and Midwives Organization, almost 9,000 people have been on trolleys. And I know things are bad here. I know things are probably worse here. 2 elderly parents have been in and out of the Royal, in and out of the city. I've also been in St James's in Dublin, round the corner from me. I'm also going in 2 weeks' time to the Dublin's Royal Victoria, and I can tell you, things aren't necessarily particularly rosy there either. The big issue south of the border, as everybody knows, next slide please, is, of course, the issue of housing. Eye-watering levels. In order to buy a house now in Dublin, these figures are actually deceptive. I put them up in order to say this is how bad things are, apart from the fact they're much worse. These are the current list prices. They came out this week from daft.ie. Daft is actually a player in the market, so we shouldn't trust the data terribly. But these will give you a sense of the price of owning a home in the Republic. As I was driving up yesterday already, it sent on the presentation, couldn't add to it. DNG, which again, a major player in the market, a major estate agent, said second-hand homes in Dublin now, the average price is 593,000 euros. If you're a young person, educated young person who's part of a couple, both of whom are earning a lot of money, you now need 127,000 euros for a deposit on a modest dwelling in Dublin. Next slide, please. And of course, many people are condemned to giving money to landlords. One of the strange things that's happened over the last decade in the Republic of Ireland, there was a very specific and catastrophic decision made in 2013, which was to invite vulture funds into the Republic of Ireland for the first time. Big Wall Street corporations who come in and buy shovel loads of property and they rent them out to people. This was a deliberate strategy to reinflate the property market and to reinflate Irish economic data under pressure from the European Union for a success story after years of vicious austerity strategies. Where are we now? It's absolutely staggering. But rents in Dublin now are on average almost 2,500. There's the sterling equivalent up at the top. People are renting. Next slide, please. People are living like children. People are living like students, and they're living like students longer. The number of my students, I work in Maynooth. Maynooth is the ground zero of the vulture fund crisis. Literally every estate that is planned, all of the properties are bought up by vulture funds. You drive past my campus, you'll see a new development ironically called Maribia, right at the side of the campus. 174 units, all of them bought up en masse, despite people already having deposits down, bought up en masse by a vulture fund, driving up the levels of property prices, driving up the rents, and driving people back into their parents' spare rooms. Next slide, please. National Youth Council 2023 did a survey that found that 70% of young people in the Republic of Ireland were thinking of leaving. Ironically, at a time when the Republic of Ireland has thankfully become a site of major immigration. Many young people are thinking about the possibility of going to the exit door. 2 years ago in my thesis group, I had the students interview one another to talk about interview strategies. One of the students said to one of the other students, first question, what do you plan on doing when you graduate? Or sorry, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And the answer was Australia. Right? This is a really common story with students, guards, nurses, public sector workers in particular in the Republic. So this property market, deliberately reinflated by the invitation for multinational vulture funds to come in, means that people can't buy a home, are paying exorbitant rents, even on big salaries. The average salary in Dublin is 46,000 euros. It sounds like an awful lot of money. It's about 3,100 euros. What's 3,100 euros to you if your rent is 2,500, right? Finally, of course, you put all this together, and what do you get? Next slide. Put all this together, and you get homelessness. You can see the trend. You can see the awful ironies, the strange political economy of capitalism south of the border. The homelessness problem only improves when the economy is locked down. Isn't that absolutely staggering? The number of people without a home only goes down when the economy actually locks down. The new figures, again, last Friday of the month, they were released, quite often buried late in the day. The new figures, it's not 15,286, it is 15,378. Those figures don't include the 35-year-olds living in their parents' spare room. They don't include the many people crashing on people's settees. They don't include that secret level of homelessness, that concealed level of homelessness in the Irish Republic. Next slide, please. I'll just conclude now. I know I'm going on a wee bit, but I think it's important to give people a wee bit of context. Constitutional change and the problem of the actually existing. Those of us who are lefties like myself will know that's a phrase from yesteryear when people used to talk about actually existing socialism, the Soviet Union, Cuba, and all of the rest of it. People who want constitutional change and people who don't, right? But particularly the former, really need to think more and need to think more critically about the nature of contemporary Irish society, because the tail is not going to be allowed to wag the dog. The driver of the economy, the most dominant elements of the population, will be people south of the border. The big state interests, the big professional interests, the surgeons and the barristers and all the rest of it. The people with the power in a new Ireland, many of them are going to be the people who have the power in this version of Ireland, and people need to think seriously about that. Anybody, this is a kid in 2019, photographed from behind, eating his dinner off a cardboard box on either, I think it's outside the GPO, but I have a feeling it's actually on Grafton Street. This was a big, big moment of crisis in Southern Irish society. Anybody like to hazard a guess where the text on the right comes from? Is the ideal of that republic reflected in scenes of homeless children eating the dinner off the pavement outside the GPO? The indignity of elderly people suffering for days in hospital trolleys? The horror of people forced to live in tents because they don't have a home? Anybody know where that comes from? Next slide, please. The 2020 Sinn Féin Southern Irish Election Manifesto. Can I just finish with this? We need a lot less double think and double speak when we talk about a new Ireland, if indeed there is to be one. And that conversation has to take in greater account of the actually existing Ireland and the way in which a booming economy doesn't necessarily give you a healthy society. In fact, the things that are making that economy boom are making many people's lives, including my students, really, really hard, really, really miserable, really problematic. Can I finish by saying this? I know in the particular logic of the sequence of this, I've been billed as a unionist, as somebody, as a unionist. I'm not a unionist, I'm a socialist. I'm a socialist from a pro-union background. I'm also a socialist from a mixed marriage. And the reason I've ended up involved in some of this politics isn't because I'm opposed to a united Ireland. The reason I'm involved in it is about 3 years ago, I went accidentally to go and see a talk by somebody who's prominent in the campaign to persuade people to that a united Ireland is around the corner, is feasible, and is optimal. And almost everything that person said, I thought was factually untrue. I began to pull at that stray thread in the jumper, and it began to unravel for me. The reason I've ended up in these debates is I do not find the account coming from those who are advancing the case for United Ireland to be respectful of data. I don't find it to be methodologically sound, and I really don't find it to be persuasive. It doesn't breed confidence when you know that somebody's trying to persuade you to do something on the basis of information that seems a wee bit questionable. Thanks very much, folks.
Alrighty, folks, I hope you enjoyed the footage there from that conference, and I hope you got a lot from that. I have to say, watching it again, listening back to it as well, it's absolutely blowing me away just in terms of the absolute misinformation that's being put out there by some of the proponents of the United Ireland argument. Please share this video, please comment on the video, like it. Get it to as many people as you possibly can. And if you like this type of content, why don't you let us know in the comments, give the video a like. And if you want as well, please subscribe to the Made to Pray channel. But until the next episode, look after yourselves and take it easy.